Now welcome to another edition of News from Naboo, Thor's Lightning Takes, and let's get right to the news.
Okay, so there was an interesting new interview out there with James Mangold. We know he's set to be in charge of the next, maybe the next Star Wars movie after?
The one after the Mando and Grogu movie,
Possibly the next, because I think Sean Levy's moving ahead too, so we actually have no idea neck and neck who this race is going to go to.
Yeah, it's the Dawn of the Jedi movie, essentially.
The Dawn of the Jedi era movie.
Okay, so it's not about... Is it era,
Dawn
or
of
is
the
it
Jedi
actually...
is like an era on their thing. We just know it's set during that time period, so we all call it Dawn of the Jedi.
I thought it was supposed to be about the first Jedi, like the first one.
I think it is.
Okay, so it's the Dawn of the Jedi. Whatever. Let's move on.
Yeah, he's out there. He's still doing like promotion for that biopic he had come out, the Bob Dylan one called A Complete Unknown. But he also got to sit down with MovieWeb, where of course they asked him about Star Wars and how everything's going. We know that he's been currently working on that script with Beau Willimon, who worked on Andor.
Yeah, which is a good thing.
Yes. Reportedly, they're actually close to finishing a draft.
Wow. For
I know.
Kennedy to say no to, like she likes to do, from everything we've heard.
But talking to Mangold, he brought up some really interesting points. Talking about like how his goal is to create something new and something original, which...
Why would you go to the Dawn of the Jedi to do that?
Well,
Why would you go
setting
forward?
something way in the past can make that a bit easier than setting something within the current running time. He said like setting it back makes that easier for him. Specifically, his quote is, "Part of the reason the Star Wars movie would be taking place 25,000 years before any known Star Wars movies take place is because it's an area and a playground that I've always wanted to explore and that I was inspired by as a teenager. But I'm also not that interested in being handcuffed by so much lore at this point that it's almost immovable and you can't please anybody."
Okay. So you want to do Star Wars, but you don't want to do Star Wars, or have to play in the sandbox?
Think about what he's saying. You don't want to be handcuffed by the lore that makes it so that he knows he'll make a mistake and he's going to mess up and now everyone's going to be mad.
Well, then don't mess up.
Yeah, but they did it with Kenobi.
Don't mess up.
They
I know,
contradict their own lore, and that makes problems. Acolyte, what did it do? Contradicted lore, in a way.
Kinda. It was bad. Acolyte wasn't very good. I don't know that the
Keanu
biggest...
Mundi?
Well, yeah, I mean, that was just dumb to put him in there and be a part of the investigation into a potential Sith. That was stupid.
I feel like him trying to set it back as far as he can also goes, hey, I can't run into as much of the lore problems.
The problem with that is you are the bedrock.
Because there is no history to this.
If you're going back to the Dawn of the Jedi, you become the bedrock of all the other lore, in a manner of speaking. I mean, you could argue, yes, the OT is like the bedrock, but you know what I'm saying.
It's probably easier as a writer to be like, well, I'm the bedrock of the lore, so people now have to worry about what I wrote, rather than I have to worry about what everyone's been writing for decades before me.
Yeah, I mean, I think what he's trying to say, that you don't want to have to go in there like, well, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can only do this, and this character can't be there, and I kind of get what he's saying, or what I hope he's saying, that he's not saying, well, I don't want to have to follow lore, I want to do what I want to do. But in a manner of speaking, you're going back to be the first guy, the guy who sets up the history, and it actually has been done before in the EU. We have the Dawn of the Jedi in the EU.
But the EU is my favorite thing. Canon.
No, but I mean, it has been done. So he's already like, well, I want to do things where people aren't going to get mad. Well, there are people who like the Dawn of the Jedi already.
That's true.
If you wanted to get away from everything, you go forward, and then you don't become, like I said, the sort of bedrock to everything else. Because whatever he sets up in this movie is how the Jedi first came into being.
But what's
That's
interesting,
a pretty big deal.
On the same note, is obviously we've been watching Skeleton Crew. Skeleton Crew is set like in the thick of Star Wars lore, and yet they're telling an original story that doesn't feel handcuffed to the lore because they're still writing their own history, their own little piece of it.
Yeah, it's a galaxy. I mean, it's so funny that
you're
always talking about...
You just have to not include characters in events, right?
Exactly, yeah. You don't.
I mean, as long as you're like, well, this is a story about Luke Skywalker. No, it's not. This is a story about 4 kids getting lost in the universe and not running into anybody we know.
Exactly.
Perfect.
It's so strange to me that we are playing in a galaxy and people are, that lore is always so constricting. Like, what are you talking about? You could have anything going on in any planet at any time that is completely different from anything else we've ever seen. Not everything that happened in the OT or the prequels or whatever film or book or whatever it might be has any impact on anything else. Skeleton Crew, as you brought up, good example.
But at the same time, does that hurt its viewership knowing that it doesn't impact the lore so much, that it's not going to run into all these big name characters that we know in the galaxy?
Maybe not. Maybe people are. I mean, the ratings for Skeleton Crew say otherwise, but maybe people are ready for
I
just
mean,
something that isn't Skywalker
what's funny is
or
honestly,
Jedi
in the,
Sith.
the season finale of Skeleton Crew coming up, I wouldn't be surprised to see a cameo of Mon Mothma. Or,
No,
the
that would make
leader of the
sense.
Republic show up to officially welcome them in or
Yeah,
something.
I could see something like that.
Like, there's nothing saying that they can't have a cameo, but they don't have to make it their story.
No, it wouldn't be Mon Mothma's story if she suddenly shows up and says, "Welcome to the New Republic." That's a terrible Mon Mothma, but
Or
you know what I
just,
mean.
you see in passing her meeting with Fern's mom or something.
Sure.
Okay, makes sense.
All I'm saying is you have a galaxy. Like not every story that takes place here on Earth, because it happens in the same general vicinity of the time period of whatever you set your story in, has anything to do with anything else going on in Earth or on Earth. So why does it have to be that way in Star Wars, where we always feel like, oh, I'm so constrained? Like, what are you talking about? It's a galaxy, and heck, Filoni took us to another galaxy. Go play in that one.
True, true.
Yeah.
Well, and then they kind of moved the conversation along to talk about like IP storytelling. Mangold has been in this situation before. I mean, he did the Indiana Jones, The Dial of Destiny.
Yeah.
Also, he did Logan.
Yeah. There's lore there too in both of those.
So he's worked within IPs. Mangold kind of says that no matter the budget of the film, no matter if he's doing a big budget IP or a small budget film, this is what he has to say on it. He says, success is never guaranteed, but the reality is that the way to get the most people to agree is to move them, to somehow find the humanity in a situation. Whether it's a mega franchise or a smaller dramatic movie, whatever they are, usually the movies you remember are the ones that move you. The ones that leave you cold, even if they're clever, even if they're spectacular, even if they're dazzling, somehow just become replaced by the next dazzling object a year later. It's the feelings. It's, the feels, right? That truly define how we feel about these movies and whether we care to visit them again.
Well, yeah, he's 100% right.
He is.
I don't care how the glitz and glamour or using the big characters or what
Hollywood's
you do.
full of that these days.
Sure, it's all spectacle over substance, like I always say. I mean, I want the substance. I love spectacle. Sure, that's great.
Absolutely.
But if it doesn't have the substance underneath it, what is the point?
I'm glad that he understands that it is those big
They should
moments.
all understand that. I mean,
They should all, but sometimes you Michael Bay it.
I mean, sometimes, yeah, you can have a popcorn, fun summer flick that is just all whatever if you really want to, but
if
those aren't the movies you remember, are they?
If it has those deep feels, that deep emotional impact on you, you're going to love it even more, and you're going to love it for years to come. You're going to recommend it to people, not just go, hey, did you see the latest this movie or that? And you'll be like, yeah, it was okay. I liked it.
Yeah.
Instead, you'll be gushing about it, telling people how it made you feel, how it affected you.
Well, why
and telling them, you should watch this because of this, reason alone.
Why are we enjoying Skeleton Crew? Because the characters are interesting. Why did I love Andor? The characters are interesting.
Because they give you that emotional impact. Andor, so many moments, you're fearful for the characters on the screen, or you're excited and amped up and, F the rebellion right alongside Marva.
Yeah.
Same with
Even though
Skeleton
she's
Crew,
dead,
watching
but
the kids cower in fear as the adults loom over them and watching them find their courage and their hope. It's moving.
Yeah, a connection with the characters. If you don't connect with the characters, if you don't feel something for them or
about them
or however you want to look at it, then you don't really care about the story. It might look good, but you're not really getting into what it is all about.
Exactly.
All right, well, I think that is going to be all we got for you this time. Now it is your turn. Take to the comments below. Tell us what you think of any of James Mangold's comments here. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Are you concerned? Are you encouraged? Whatever the case may be, leave those comments below. Let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.